On October the 31st, 1517, Martin Luther posted 95 big questions which he believed faced the church of his day to a local church door in Wittenberg, Germany. 500 years later, I decided to post 95 new questions, one a week, to the web, questions which I believe the church must face in the 21st century. There's an ancient story which tells the tale of a fish, which, because it was a fish, had lived all its life in water and knew nothing whatsoever about anything else. Now one day, as it swam in the lake where it had spent all its days, it happened to meet a turtle friend who'd just come back from an excursion onto the land. The fish greeted the turtle. "I've not seen you for a long time. Where have you been?" "Oh," said the turtle, "I've been on a trip on dry land." "Dry land?" exclaimed the fish. "What's that? Is it wet? Is it cool? Is it clear? Can you swim in it?" "No," said the turtle. "I just can't describe it to you though." "Why not?" asked the fish. "Because there's nothing in your experience that you can compare it to," replied the turtle. Now, the Jewish people believed that history, the history of the world, the history of the entire universe was headed somewhere. It had a goal. God had not abandoned his creation. It had a destiny. In fact, this was a unique understanding that the Jewish people supplied to the rest of the world. Time for them was linear rather than circular. It was going somewhere. A new era was coming, the golden age of God. And this had been foretold by the Hebrew prophets in key passages contained in what we now call the Old Testament. Passages such as Isaiah chapter 2 verse 4. God will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples, it declares. They'll beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations will not take up sword against nation anymore, nor will they train for war. The day of the Lord, as it becomes known, is the term that describes this ultimate act of God's judgment, justice and blessing. It will occur when human history has reached its divinely determined goal and will usher in a life in which all humanity is completely under the rule of God. The day when the God of love and justice will intervene on behalf of his people Israel, irrespective of their faithfulness to him. He will be faithful to them. But transformed by his encounter on the Damascus road, the Apostle Paul came to understand that through Jesus, what belongs to the age to come was already breaking into the here and now to bring hope, not only for the Jewish nation now, but for all people, for all nations, for all languages, for all tribes, for all colours, for all classes, for everyone. So it was that Paul reframed Hebrew thought in terms of his new understanding of Christ as the judge of humankind. For instance, as he explains to the aristocratic ruling council of ancient Athens, recorded in Acts chapter 17 verse 31, God has set a day when he will judge the world with justice by the man Jesus he has appointed. He's given proof of this to everyone by raising him from the dead. However, as Paul acknowledges in his famous first letter to the church in Corinth, chapter 13, frankly, his language about the future is at best like gazing through a glass darkly. It's an exercise which is unlikely to reveal anything but a dim and distorted image of the future, because there's nothing in our experience that it can be compared to. As he puts it, for we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. For now we see only a reflection, as in a mirror, but then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I'm fully known. Although he's aware of his limited grasp, he still believes that he has signposts. Not maps, not photographs, but at least reliable signposts which point him to the future and give him part of the answer. They point him in the right direction. Paul sets out his most systematic thinking around this great mystery, which he sees as the renewal of the whole cosmos, in chapter 8 of his letter to the Romans. I consider, he says, that our present sufferings are not worthy of comparing to the glory that will be revealed to us. For the creation waits in eager anticipation. Though at present it's subject to what Paul calls frustration, he says it's been groaning as in the pains of childbirth. It will be liberated from this bondage to decay. It will be liberated. So for Paul, the future isn't about how he or anyone else is going to escape from earth on a cloud to another place called heaven. Instead, it's about what God is doing to renew earth and the whole cosmos. His message was never about how certain individuals get saved and then fly off somewhere else. It's about what God is doing here and now and in the future with us all. For Paul, the day of the Lord will finally see the dimensions of earth and heaven completely integrated. It's the day when all of the downtrodden and the oppressed will finally experience the gracious inclusion of God's loving and wise judgment. It's the day when our earthly realm and that of God's kingdom will finally become one and the same. But for now, as we long for that day's dawn, our challenge, whatever the cost, is to choose to live in sync, to live in line with the way the whole universe is headed. So I leave you with a question. What does this mean for us as individuals and communities? What does it mean in terms of our lives, our purpose? What does it mean in terms of our priorities? I explore this issue more deeply, as well as many others raised by the Apostle Paul's writing in my new book, The Lost Message of Paul. You can purchase your paperback copy today from openchurch.network/Lost Message of Paul, or from any good bookshop. An ebook and an audiobook are also available from Amazon, as well as from other online retailers.